Today I am joined by a special guest, James Ward, and James is the Chief Explorations Officer at Rewild Safaris. And so, James, welcome.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It's great having you here. As I mentioned to you a moment ago, we just published a first episode of the Far-Flung Adventure series talking about our trip to Sanctuary Swala in Tanzania. And the experience, that was our first ever camp, and the impression that it left with me and made on me. And so it was really very timely that you and I got put in touch with each other, and that you're here. So it's great to have you.
Yep, it's great to be here. Love talking about safaris and love talking to people who've been on safari.
What are some of the mistakes people make when looking at booking a safari or putting together an itinerary for going over, let's say, to Africa? What kind of mistakes do people make, and what things should they avoid?
Some of the common mistakes is they haven't done some research in advance, and having an expectations of what the differences are, right? So as you experience on your safari, I'm sure you have bush camps where you have elephants, lions right outside your tent, right? Or you're in a big lodge where you don't have that. And
Right.
so, East Africa, where you went to Tanzania, and that but is much different than Southern Africa. And so if you don't have an understanding, do you want to go see the migration? Do you want to see the Serengeti? Or do you want more of a bush feeling and more of a private, less crowd? So understanding that side of it, a lot of people come in with expectations that they are going to see National Geographic video, and they don't realize that those people who videotape that spend 2 to 3 years trying to get those shots.
If someone's looking to book a safari, is there something such as a red flag, like things that you would steer someone away from? What cautionary advice would you have?
So the big thing for me is know who you're going with. Make sure that they've traveled to those destinations, they've done the research, work with conservation groups that aren't ethical when it comes to wildlife viewing.
Can
And
you give me an
um,
example?
so I go on trips, what I call educational trips. So I will go and check out lodges and camps. I spent 3+ weeks in Madagascar going from camp to camp. And one place we went, I got there, and I looked up and I saw lemurs right around the dining area. And some of the lemurs were definitely not supposed to be in that area. So I started to raise flags in my head, and I asked the guys, like, are they feeding lemurs here? And he's like, I think they are. And then came out that they were. And next morning, I went for a walk, and the guide is pretending to have food below my lens. I knew at that point I'd never booked that lodge, and I literally said, "Can you hold on so I can put my camera away?" Put it in my room, and came back and just went for the walk. For what we do, because it's so conservation focused, baiting of animals, and the way they treat animals. I mean, I was on a safari once in East Africa. The lions weren't in the right spot for them. They literally went use the vehicle to move them, bump them out of the way. So their people in their vehicle could get better photographs. You want a reputable safari company that you're working with, and you want to ask those questions.
You mentioned about people having expectations for safari, and I mean, I'll have to be honest. When we went over to Africa the first time, I had no idea what to expect. That's why I think it had such a big impact on me, because going on safari is like nothing else, any other kind of travel experience really in the world. I think that having an expectation that you're gonna have a lion sitting outside of your tent. Some people might find that scary. Some people find it exhilarating.
Yeah, it's amazing what you see with that, and I think in the expectations with Lions, man, what I've seen is almost on everybody's first, right? When they go and they're in those bush camps, first night they're nervous and they get more comfortable and more comfortable, and then
Yeah.
they really love it. And then I some of these trips I go on, I've had friends join me, and I say to them, everyone, I'm like, don't close the flaps of your tents. Just keep them open at night. You're going to enjoy it. And inevitably, the first night they close it, and then they get hot, and then you're like, okay. keep them open, and they keep them open, and then they're like, oh my god, and that's the conversation at breakfast or when you're in the morning drive. This was right outside my tent. This was, and you know at that point you're like, oh, they're hooked. They're now.
So can you tell that? Can you tell when someone's hooked?
You can. It takes a day, if not a day, it's 2 days, right? You see it in their eyes, and I tell everybody that goes on safaris, when you come back, you're going to talk with people at a party, whatever. You see your friends, and people who haven't been, you'll see their eyes. It just goes right over their head, right?
Yeah.
They don't understand it. But then you have a conversation with someone that's done it, and it's just a different connection. And I tell everybody, you may leave Africa, but Africa never leaves you.
Exactly. That's 100% correct. True. So, a couple of other questions. Do you think that safari is appropriate for children? And if so, or if not, is there a minimum age that you would recommend?
If you
Okay.
want your child to remember and have the full experience, I'd say it's 11, 12 is the right time they're going to remember it. They're going to be able to sit quietly in the vehicle. Those game drives, depending where you are between 4, or they could be 4 hours or full day game drives. And if, now you have the attention span you have to worry about.
Is there an ideal length of time that you think for a safari, minimum, maximum?
Well, from the U.S. to go to Africa, it's a long flight. So you want to balance that. Typically, we're 10 to 12 days in country, but I've done some where it's 8 days and they love it, right?
More and more people, travelers, no matter where they go, safari or anything else, want to do good. They want to maybe not feel like they're giving back to the local community, but they want to feel like they are, as you said, ethical in their trip, in their travel. How do you try to foster that?
Just last year, we worked with a company in Zimbabwe that reintroduced or translocated rhinos in southern Wange area. And instead of bringing them into the park, they worked with the local community and they took prime grazing land, or the community gave them prime grazing land for these rhinos. And every visitor who visits the rhinos, a percentage of the cost of that go into the community. And then the community has a board and they decide how to spend the money.
So, people have heard of the Serengeti. People know the Serengeti. A lot of people know the Masai Mara and more quote unquote popular destinations. What are some of the hidden gems? What are some of the destinations, some of the areas that wouldn't come first to someone's mind, but is maybe on your list of must see?
Well, Botswana is still a popular destination, but Botswana is definitely a must see. I love South Luangwa in Zambia. It's one of the best wildlife destinations. So it's not the typical Southern African safari. It is Southern Africa, but when you get there, the wildlife is as good as anywhere else. Except for rhinos, it has the big five. It's actually South Luangwa is considered the Valley of the Leopard, so it's one of the best places in the world to see leopard.
James, you just mentioned a few minutes ago about the Big Five. For listeners that aren't familiar with the Big Five, what are they?
Rhino, elephant, lion, leopard, and Cape Buffalo. And they're basically based on the big hunting from one big game hunting. So, but now it's also the top things people want to see on safari. And then you add two more with the cheetah and painted wolves, wild dogs are key. So,
You not get bored? Like, okay, there's another lion. Up, there's another lion. Up, there's another lion.
so what I tell people is uh, really appreciate what you're seeing. And so you have two different types of philosophies on safaris. One is checking list, right? So they're going to see line, then they want to go see something else, and you see them all the time. I mean, I was in a vehicle we had two cheetahs sitting under a tree. They were just sitting there sleeping, and another vehicle pulled up. Is like, I've seen enough big cats in the shade, sleeping in the shade, and just drove off. And so then there's people like me, and what I advise people is sit and wait and appreciate and see the behavior, because those cheetahs got up and started grooming each other, and it was an unbelievable sighting.
Wow.
But it was because you're patient, and so every time you see a lion, it's going to do something differently, right?
Right.
You might catch it when it's about to go on a hunt, and then you see the dynamics of how they work together on a hunt. Even just when they greet and they put their heads together when they greet. So I don't get bored, and I've seen thousands of lions. I learn something new every time that I'm at a sighting.
Is there a better time to go than another?
It depends what you want, right? So the rainy season is probably the
Wh-
toughest time of year to
Which
go.
is when?
So depending where you are, so it's typically starts in November. For Southern Africa, it starts in November and goes into March. East Africa has a short rains and a long rains, so it's early. Then it opens back up in that January, February time, and then there's another rain. So, but it's sometimes when you go in the rains, see, it's not raining constantly the whole time. You might get a shower in the afternoon, but it's less crowded. B, you're getting a lot more green, so it's not as dusty. And you're just seeing different wildlife. One of my favorite times to go to Tanzania is between the rains. If you go to this calving season in the southern Serengeti, um, so there's always a time you can go somewhere in Africa. It depends what you want to see and what your goals are. Because listen, Namibia you can go any time of year, even though they have rains. It's one of the driest deserts in the world. So um, you're gonna have a good time when you go.
So let's, on a more personal note, what makes what you do meaningful for you? What do you get out of it?
There's two things I get out of it. So in my previous career, I did a lot of work with conservation groups. I helped them build businesses for alternate sources of income for either the conservation group or the community. And the whole time that you just realize how important eco travel was. And that's around the world. It's not just Africa. Like Madagascar, it's super important that people go because, again, it preserves, it creates a value for the natural resource intact as opposed to being extracted. Um, so that's one, because it's very important for conservation. Two, I think people who go and experience at an intimate level. So it's not a standard safari. As a wildlife photographer, I try to design a safari that you get a similar experience as I do as a wildlife photographer, but nicer accommodations. Um, and I think when you experience it at that level, you just get a totally different appreciation for it. And so then you're going to want to save it and you're going to support conservation and then you're going to talk to your friends about it. And then they're going to go, that's my favorite part of my job is sharing what I experience. And I'm lucky to have experienced it many, 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 many times. I love sharing that with people. It's my favorite when I'm with someone. It's their first trip to Africa. Seeing their face, seeing their enjoyment. Those are the two main reasons.
You mentioned luxury. Is there a range of accommodations? I mean, in my first episode, I said, if you think you're sleeping on a cot, in a triangle tent, with a campfire going and, hot dogs roasting over it, it's not that at all. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, so you can do that, but most people don't. So yeah, so it is glamping, and there's levels of glamping, right? So we at Rewild Safaris, we book 3 star and above. We don't do the pop tents, cots thing. The But then you go to some 5 star camps. You have your own pool. It's nicer than my house. They're bigger than my house. And it's called a tent only because it's canvas walls. You have sliders in it. You have different rooms. So it's a wide variety of what you're staying in. But that is probably the biggest surprise of almost everyone. Because number one question. Wait, I'm going to be staying in a tent, and I have to show pictures like that. This is what tents look like in Africa.
A lot of people probably ask, do they have Wi-Fi? Can I stay in touch with, home? How does someone get in touch with me if I need to? Does that come up?
It does come up, and it's actually an important conversation to have. So you have different varieties of Wi-Fi. Now with Starlink, you're getting a lot more high speed. But you have ones that have it, and then those ones can be separated. That's only in the rooms, or it's only in the main area, or the whole camp. And I prefer when it's only in the rooms because I'm there, I'm working most of the time I'm there, so and then I'm trying to call home. So when I'm in, as you know, when you're in a bush camp, you have to be walked back to your room at night. You don't get to walk around because there's lions, hippos, Cape buffalo in camp. So you get back to your room at 9. That's the time you want to make your phone calls home based on time change. Um, so it's difficult to do it if it's only in the main area because now you're keeping people awake. Um, I also like it because when I'm in the main area, I want to be in the moment.
So unfortunately, in the video, at this point, the software that I was using lost the rest of our conversation, but that's okay. We were at the end. I thank James for his time and for all the great information that he provided. I also asked him for his contact information, which I'll make sure to include in the show notes for this video. So I hope you enjoyed listening to our conversation about going on safari. Maybe it's triggered you to have a desire to go on safari, and if you do, I guarantee you that you will be very, very happy and very, very excited about the experience.